everyone. This is Zara Altair with Actation Now, and I'm just so honored to have this conversation with David Amerland, Martin Shervington, and Teodora Petkova because just a while back, Google Plus platform was updated, and there were so many changes, and people were struggling with the changes, and I knew that I wanted to have this discussion about going forward with the changes in Google Plus. So let's start with David, and each of you just briefly introduce yourself for those who don't know, and then we'll just dig in with what to do now.
Okay, thank you, Zara. Thank you very much for inviting me here. And yep, I'm David Amerland. I write books on search and social and communities and the web, and I also consult with a few multinationals on strategy. So I tend to see a very broad picture, which is usually backed by data, which I get back from that. So it helps me join all the dots.
Martin?
Hello, I'm Martin Shervington. I read books by David Amerland and help people connect the dots in communities, plus your life and plus your business.
Teodora.
Hi, I'm Teodora, and I write blog posts for me and for people, and I help them with content. And I'm also a thing finder. I find things on the web.
Oh, ThinkFinder, that is really fabulous. That is a really fabulous name. I like that. And I'm Zara Altair, and I do semantic writing, and I'm also a reader of David Amerland. And so anyway, we're all here to talk about the updates to Google Plus and how we can go forward. And Martin just this morning had a post on Google Plus about using collections. So let's start with that. Martin, you want to talk a little bit about that, because I have experienced, and I know a number of other people have experienced, an amazing addition to followings since collections have started. So how can we take advantage of that and get that engagement that we thought we had lost?
Good start. Okay, so let's look at what's happening. So collections and communities, we've been told, are the focus, really moving forward for Google+. To me, it's the stream. And if we look at collections, what we're doing is differentiating, niching our content, and making it easy for people to know what they get. So if somebody's into, if you have a person, so they've got a group of followers who used to follow them for everything because they liked them, and that person would be posting publicly, then they may be into something religious and political or whatever it may be. And some of the followers may not like everything. They may have a different viewpoint. So now they can unfollow those collections and decide. So in other words, we've got the ability to choose. We've got the ability to opt in a lot more to what we want to see in our stream and know what we're getting. Now, from an engagement point of view, if people are following a particular collection, not following the person, you can assume that the new followers want that content. So when they see that content in the stream, what I would predict probably is we'll start to find engagement to go up. Not necessarily from the usual people that we have around who followed you because they liked you, Zara. They will be following that particular piece of content because they're into that subject. I've been testing some fringe stuff that I know, because I've done these tests before, that some people on here will go, that's just, oh, that's a little bit over the edge. I know that the engagement I've got on some of that has been through the roof, because the new followers know that that's what they're collecting. So life, the universe, and everything, I can pretty much do what I want with that in terms of content now, and go as fringe, and I can go into my weird and wacky rhymes, and people like it. So I think that by committing and not being shy about producing content and sharing content that is niched, is focused, is serving that group of people, you're building a community, you're building a micro community around a collection. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, the collections and communities are very similar. You know, that's something to be watching on the horizon. Philosophically, they're similar, and I know David will talk more about that.
That's really great. That And I just have to bring this up because I have one question here that I'm going to bring up. Omicido is here, and he says, "Hi, my name is Omicido, and I love eating ice cream." So one question for you, Omi. Do you have an ice cream collection? Okay, I just had to bring that up because it was fun. David,
Yeah.
let's get your big overview perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Let's build on what Martin has just said. Essentially, the trouble we have always had when it came to the magical term of engagement is why. Why should you engage with anybody? And in one word, which governs anything which has to happen across the web, it's relevance. And as Martin said, if you are a content creator, you have two things to wonder about. First of all, who are your audience? And then once you sort of understand who they are you completely hidebound by what you think they need? In which case, you're beginning to curtail your personality a little bit and perhaps becoming something which you're not entirely comfortable being all the time. And a lot of us thought, oh, we really don't care very much, we're going to put any whatever, and if people follow us, great. If they don't, again, it's their prerogative. But we have become, to some degree, those of us who produce content consistently, authorities in specific things, not everything. I can't possibly put something out on cars and pretend I'm an authority simply because I put it out and I've got X number of followers, any more than you or Martin or any of us can do something similar. So having that relevance means segregation. Segregation comes through collections very neatly, very nicely. It falls into the ontology building aspect of semantic search, where Google begins to understand the patterns of our sharing and behavior and how they lead into our authority on specific things. It also helps those who follow us to make a conscious decision whether they want to follow the person because they like the entirety of what we do, or the expertise because they like specific things of what we do. And whichever thing they choose to do, that's great because it creates a clarity of signal in terms of engagement and interaction that Google then uses to understand the importance and gravity of what's being shared. And at the end of the day, in a web that's determined by algorithmic behavior, to clarify content, to determine how important it is and how truthful it is. We need that clarity of signal for that to happen. We need masses of data for that to take place. And this is a great first step. I think it's a very positive beginning. All other caveats aside, whether we like the look of it and the feel of it, what it's actually intended to do is a very specific thing, which is very positive moving forward.
Okay. And I'm just going to bring up this question right now, and then we'll talk to Theodora. Sheila Hensley says, "It's hard to overcome being shy setting up my collections. Surprised me, but true." And
yes, that's so true, Sheila. That's a brilliant thing because essentially, by putting a collection together, this is what you're saying. You're saying you have a particular interest in this, which means that also perhaps you have a specific viewpoint or specific expertise, and here it is laid bare for everyone to see. Whereas before you could perhaps hide it a little bit, in 100 posts where you had cut gifs and posts about whatever and things which you were interested in. But now you're actually, almost nailing your colors to the mast, and that's always a little bit tricky.
That was a really great point because yes, it's very specific and targeted, and I think you're right, David, that oh well, it'll be hidden in here with all my other posts about X, Y, and Z, and what books I'm reading, or what the kiddies are doing, or whatever people do, or my beer sampling, whatever it is, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I've got it. I'm putting it in this collection, and now I'm making a statement just by putting something in a collection. You're making a statement.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to take it one bit further in that sometimes I find something and I'm not sure which collection I should choose because there are overlaps within the content of whatever I'm posting, and I find that that's one of the things that's challenging for me is, where do I actually, which collection is the right one?
There's usually an overriding determinant in that. And I'll give you an example. I've got two collections, so very similar. I've got technology and I've got machine learning. And sometimes machine learning developments are also equally important in terms of a technological breakthrough. And I've got to make a decision as in which is the more important of the two. And I think in our role as collection builders, we act as inadvertent editors, perhaps, making those editorial decisions that govern people. How successful we are in that is then reflected in the value that the collection has for those who access it. And that's a two-way street. You know, suddenly we become really responsible. If I decide to follow one of Martin's collections, and you mentioned life, the universe, and everything, which sounds very broad, it's very philosophical, and it covers a lot of things there which are very mind-expanding, and that's the easiest way to actually say it. If you're into that, that's great, but then on the other side of that, Martin has to make really critical decisions about what to put in there. He doesn't just throw anything in there, it doesn't fit anything else. And that's what gives it value, that's what gives him value as a curator of the collection. We, in many ways, become cooperative in building the web and its content. We rebuild things by resharing and recreate them for people who access them, and we become responsible for that. And again, that's a new thing. You know, we suddenly become responsible for hundreds of thousands of people reading something new and learning from that and opening up their horizons.
And then Omi has another content which I can't talk comment, which I think is very pertinent. Collections let you immerse yourself in content similar to a tab of ice cream.
Yeah, he's right. Indulging. That's exactly right. I mean, in the past, you know, let's say if you want to follow Martin, which I highly recommend. Now, let's say you do that, and you only like one particular thing of what he shares, and he shares a lot of stuff. Then you would have to do what? Go to his profile and try and stream through that and filter everything. It becomes really tedious. And you think, well, who's got the time for that? Now, you just go to one of the collections and say, that's what I want. And that's all I want from him. Brilliant. I mean, that's fantastic because, you know, you can indulge to your heart's delight.
So, Teodora, so here we are with collecting things. So, how do you approach collections?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to start with Sheila's comment about being shy for putting a collection on Google+. And I think this is key to the idea of building our digital profiles today. Shy means considerate. As David said, now we're all responsible for putting content on the web. And knowledge representation and classification is not an easy thing. And it's kind of machine learning is picking our brains when it comes to classifying content. And that's a rational perspective. An emotional perspective is that it's so nice to be shy on the web and to really feel like you can't put everything there and you really need to think about it before you engage. And Sheila really thinks about the people that are going to read that. And this is the essence of the web of people.
I think that is so true. It is the web of people, and I think it was long ago, something that it was actually a conversation I think with David, and he said, you know, everybody will automatically say thank you, and I was like, nope. I don't automatically say thank you. It is a web of people, and that when I write a thank you to someone, I am somehow in my head envisioning that particular person, and that my thank you is specifically to them. I'm not going to automatically just go thanks. You know, it's like each thank you action, which seems so simple, is really a connection with that individual person. And I really love the way you framed that, Teodora, you know, as our emotions and how our emotions are connected to the things that we say when we're communicating with other people.
Mm-hmm. Technology is just an enabler.
Can I take that a little further and just say hello to Vivek and to Farinaz and to Kim and to Gary and to Gina and to Andrea and to Julie, lovely to see you too, and to Sheila and Omi. I'd love to connect with you further. I know you're doing some great things I've seen on David's thread. I know we haven't connected properly yet. And to Tim, we said, he's always got good questions, and everyone else, and Gina, if I didn't say. But that's what it's about, isn't it? I mean, that's what this community has got and has had all along. And I know with people on Blab, it's like, oh my God, Blab's amazing, and I've done Blab, and I like Blab. We've kind of had that here for a long time. It's okay, the tech's a bit different, but what's exciting is connecting. And what you're saying, Teodora, is that you kind of got to mean it. You kind of got to want the relationship. You kind of got to have a real thing, as opposed to what you're saying, Zara, is go and do 5+1s on their posts, reshare their stuff, say thank you for them for posting it, as if that's going to build the relationship. Do you know what I mean? There's no mechanics. I think we've moved so far beyond that now. Mm-hmm. and the community, and for people arriving, we can shortcut very quickly what people can achieve really relationally. I mean, building relationships so much easier because we understand the space, and I think we have moved on into let's focus on our passions. Let's do the stuff that we love. Let's find the people that relate to us and allow ourselves to take that step. Interestingly, and I think the point, Sheila, you're making really is really interesting across platforms for me and quite profound. Facebook, just now, I said, should you edit yourself? And I just put it as a question, should you edit yourself? And I'm going to tell the context now, everybody, as to why I put that out. On Google+, I can pretty much post anything I want in the two collections, Life, Universe and Everything, and Business Connecting the Dots, pretty much. Virtual reality, I posted something about business people using LSD yesterday. I can post anything about like the machine learning and everything on business as Google to my heart's content over here. Facebook, I can't do it, so I've got to go. Well, I like it, and you might see that in your stream, but I can't kind of just go full on, which is why I post 10 things over here and maybe a little bit over there. But more interesting for me on a personal level is the comedy side. Can I make that joke? Can I say that thing? How free am I? In Hangouts, in private Hangouts, free. But on Threads, we've got David's grandmother test. If your grandmother was looking at that, would they send you to the corner and make you sit on the naughty step or whatever it would be? Is that what they would do? And I think that that's something. In fact, Mark Schaefer, if you ever go over and look at what's going on in that thread on Facebook, Mark shared it, it becomes part of your brand. So you have to make a decision. Do you say that thing? Do you post that thing? And you have to learn, in a way, where are you? And we're in psychological spaces. A collection's a psychological space. A community's a psychological space. A hangout's the same. And I think that mapping exercise takes a while for people to really understand. And desktop is an absorption state of connection, far, far higher than the experience that people have when they're consuming, in particular on a mobile. And I do believe that because of augmented reality, we're moving very much in the direction of mobile with Google. But we are so connected because we're using the tools in a way that allows that to happen.
And then let's talk a little bit more about engagement, because Farinaz says there are people who are following our collections, but there is no interaction possible, and we don't know the objectives as well as possibilities in practical terms. I'm not sure there is no interaction possible. I don't understand that, because I think there is interaction possible. Anyone want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I think sometimes if we have a lot of collections, we tend to become a little bit fragmented, but from the perspective of the content creator, the engagement level in collections has actually has increased significantly as opposed to the old stream. Now what happens, of course, is that you also get a lot of people who follow a collection, they may not be as well versed in the culture of commenting or engaging. Sometimes they'll +1 it, sometimes they say hi. And what has increased with the collections ever since the design change in Google Plus is the number of people coming to a post and saying hi, or putting in, 2-word comment, which doesn't mean anything. They just came in to say something. I think that's positive because first of all, they've seen the content. They have chosen to actually put something there. They're beginning to build their digital presence on the web. Do we want them to read it carefully, give it a lot of thought, and come back with something that means something? Well, I think statistically we'll always get a small percentage of people doing that, because for a variety of factors. It could be circumstances. Myself, if I find myself sometimes between traveling between points, I find a great post, +1 it. I want to comment, I can't. I haven't got the time because either I'm going to start driving, or I'm being driven, and other things are happening, or I'm just near my destination point. So these are things which we need to bear in mind, and we can't be prescriptive in the way that people engage and interact with posts. What we want to see is content being seen first, and then we're going to see the impact it has as a follow-up.
Thank you, because I know that happens to me. Like right now, I have this giant writing project, and it's absorbing a lot of my time, and to go through and long comment on posts that I see that that strike me in some way or another. It's they're 24 hours in a day. And unlike David, who never seems to sleep, I do have to sleep. It's just part of my life ritual is sleeping every night. So I'm sure that happens to us all, that we can acknowledge the post in some positive way, or make a short comment, but sometimes there's a post that's just calling for, a long response of some kind or another, and there just isn't time. That I find very frustrating.
Yes, absolutely. But I think in terms of content, at the end of the day, Martin made a very important point. If we sort of take away the fact that we are visually connecting right now, essentially we are just psychological presences becoming denser with every kind of engagement, interaction, post sharing, and so on. To actually see somebody's content and think about it as we go through, that's a huge impact on a psychological level. We begin to change each other's cognitive spaces, and I think that's it's a marvelous thing to do, and it just takes time. It's a drip effect.
And we've also been doing it for a long time. Zara, that's the thing, is that we've moved on a stage in the nature of the relationships that people have and how the community is. So sometimes just staying top of mind is all that needs to happen, and then hop in a hangout for 20 minutes and have a really good catch up with the person. And I think that if the relationships are okay, then it's all fine, because you just reignite all of the historic conversations and all of the interactions as soon as you're back together again and you reconnect. And I think that that's the big thing with this change that's happened. We've been doing this for a while. We've all been doing this for a while. It's okay. We've just got to look at it, really, and from my point of view, from that mobile perspective in particular, and let's say, how can we get together in real life? How can we go to more conferences? What can we be doing in the real world? How can we increase the energy, not just inward, but outward as well?
Yes, I really liked your point, Martin, about following up with posts that you didn't have time at the moment. You didn't have time to do a long response. But then when you are actually in a hangout with someone, or you're having a conversation somewhere else, you can refer back to that post that struck you at the time, and it becomes part of that new conversation. I really like that point that you made. It's not like it's a one-time instance,
Thousands, tens of thousands of hours that we've got, and where we put our attention and who we put our attention toward, and what we do. And that's if you can take it out that we're going to be doing this for the next however long, then we don't have to rush to try and get the engagement up on content. We just, just find your passion, keep posting this thing, but do it because you want to do it, not do it because you've got to try and get 20+1s or something, because it's probably not going to make any difference to your life at all. You're doing it as a personality display. Actually, is what you're doing. You're saying, I'm into this stuff. This is who I am. And if you like this and you want to be around me whilst I'm having these conversations, or making the point that we could have a conversation around it, then come follow. And if you don't, unfollow. And it's okay, because maybe you like this other thing that I do. And that's really the nice thing about the differentiation that we've got. We could have done it with circles, but it wasn't quite designed like, well, it was actually designed like that probably, but we didn't tend to use it in that particular way, certainly not after the first period of time.
Yes, and I was just talking to someone yesterday in real life, who has always been reluctant to use Google Plus or be on Google Plus in any way, and I said, this, you can do that on Google Plus, and this will happen. And she says, oh, the thing that bothered me about Google Plus was the circles. I just didn't know how to, organize people, and so circles don't count that much anymore. I said, no, it's about your thoughts and your ideas, and she was like, oh wow, I've got to look at that again. So,
well, that's the plan, I think. That's what Google, I think, very much. Look, just talk from a real practical point of view. If people are communicating it, once you set, if you're consuming, let's say, as opposed to producing, and you simply tap, it doesn't matter because you just click and you don't necessarily know if it's public or otherwise. However, when you create a collection, if you choose public, the next thing you do when you're sharing a post is, firstly, when you click, it shows Google Plus or Twitter or Facebook or the link. But if you choose the Google Plus, which we can come back to, if you choose a Google Plus, it's likely to have collections there. And that's kind of the default that's coming up, certainly for me at the moment on the mobile. Once you've chosen it's public, you don't have to worry about public and choose the circle and choose if I'm going to notify them as well. It's solved it. So one of the problems that we've had for years is people sharing content privately that they thought were sharing publicly because they didn't include public, they included circles and extended circles. It's got around that. You do the setting once. The collection is public. You can't change it from that. Or it could be other. But I think that most of us understand the value of the reach of public. But let me just add in as well about how we've broken down the walls. And I think that this is something over the next year we're going to see considerably. Facebook is going to have more Google Photos content go into it because a lot of people use that app. It's a wonderful one flat. A lot of people are going to start sharing. When that box comes up, same as it does on the desktop, they're going to be sharing to Facebook. They're going to be sharing to Twitter. They're going to be spreading it out. And I've said to everybody on Facebook, didn't go down that well, I said it's going to happen. Not just it's going to happen with me, but what Google have done is do a system change that means that we'll change our behaviors. So to me, Facebook's a honeycomb app. Facebook used to be that everything was Facebook, and then we find that it changed. Over the years, the psychology behind it came, and it held, and your attention, it's a mini little web. What it's not great for is search. Sorry, is it? But it's good for surfacing stuff. I find stuff on Facebook that I share back over here, but I also share the photos back over there. And the quality of the photos that I'm sharing, they're excellent. Because Google uploads in high res, or in the high res.
Yeah. It's essentially from the change. I mean, Teodora mentioned she's a thing finder, and she's a thing finder extraordinaire. If anybody follows her blog, the things she talks about, absolutely brilliant. But essentially, that's what we all are, right? When we get on the web, we're looking for things that actually will help us do something, or will catch our attention in a specific moment in time. And that's exactly what Google Plus is evolving into in terms of surfacing content, not just within Google Plus, because that is already a converted, convinced audience, but across the wider web. I've seen over the past month or so content from Google Plus servers on Twitter repeatedly, which it used to take a lot of effort for that to happen. surfacing on Facebook, what Martin said is absolutely correct. It's increasingly surfacing on Facebook, and we'll see it also on other social networks, because once you realize the value from a end user point of view of sharing this across a couple of other platforms, then you go the extra mile, or perhaps sharing on LinkedIn or sharing on one of the other social networks you're engaged in. And that again is creating that clarity signal that Google wants to see, because they do follow all that activity is being followed from Google Plus across profiles into other networks. Engagement is actually factored in, it's indexed, and somewhere it accrues a certain value, and it begins to build a semantic web. Now, the web of people essentially is data points, profiles that are actually measured as people. In order for that to happen, we need to see the activity, the interaction, the sharing, the engagement, and the value of the relationships in relation to the connections that we create. So, it's fine to say, hey, I follow Zara Altair, and I never engage with her, I never talk to her. I mean, where's the value in that? There isn't. Maybe not following her. But if there's value in the content that she shares, then I'm likely to engage with her, which then gives value to the engagement and interaction. It gives value to the content. It gives value to her profile. It adds value to my profile as well in terms of that activity. And that's how it happens. It's the way it's happened in the real world. That's how we form communities. That's how we form
It's exactly
society.
how it happens. It is exactly how it happens, and I like that explanation, David, because it's people, and I think the struggle for many when Google updated Google Plus, the struggle for many was now what do I do? How do I reach all those people that I was in connection with? Because I think for a lot of people it felt like the line had been cut, and where were they? How do I reach them? The ways that I used to reach them aren't working anymore, and so it's still possible to, as David said, follow a person, for that whole big picture. And I think, for the people with whom we do engagement on an emotional level, we do that. We follow the whole person. It isn't just one or two collections, but it's that person with whom we connect.
Yes.
And the intellectual part is following collections that spark thoughts. I mean, I have one collection that's called Thought Sparks. It's just like, look at this, and form your own opinions. I like that. Teodora, let's go back to things and people. You have such wonderful a wonderful concept of how things and people are connected, and how we connect both of them on the web.
Okay. Well, let me start with something that made an impression in me. What you said, in real life. You were describing something. And it's amazing that we're still thinking real life and web. And I think that the moment has come when we are starting to think about life as a whole. Like we merged offline and online. Some of us to a greater extent. Some people are starting right now to do that. And again, this Martin said that Facebook is a mini little web. Then David mentioned wider web. And again, this integration and interoperability of technologies, these are all leading to real life being only one life.
I like that. so that I'm going to just say what you said, the interoperability of the web is leading to one life, real life. Beautiful.
Yeah, these are like thoughts from reading Tim Berners-Lee. These are not my thoughts. It's just...
Oh, own them. You should own them, Teodora.
Yeah, it's just saying something that many visionaries knew 20 years ago. However, maybe it's natural that things went wild and siloed, like set in boxes, in different boxes, and now things are uniting again. And yes, we're transcending on like another level, as Martin said. He did not use the verb transcend.
I didn't really. I was
going to
say, just give an example? David will speak. Go on. You say something more intelligent.
I was going to say what Teodora said is absolutely spot on, and it's really predicated upon visibility. It's very easy to be somebody else, whether in real life or the web, if not many people are looking at you and you work in a compartmentalized environment. And what's happening is, as the technology is becoming broader, accessibility, transparency, bandwidth, ease of use, all those things are conspiring, for lack of a better word, to basically break down the barriers and create one unified connection. So if you take, for instance, somebody with high visibility, if you take me or if you take Martin, people access my digital content and they see my hangouts on air, and they do the same for Martin's, and then they meet us in real life. There's absolutely no way you can't be yourself in either, because the disparity would be so strong that it would create issues in its own right. So the easiest way to be on the web is to be who we are in real life, and vice versa. But for people starting out now, it's a conscious decision, and it's a huge step. It's part of our digital literacy. These are the things we're actually consciously consuming and internalizing right now. That the web, which used to be the place where we went to as a digital playground to escape real life, has actually become as visible, transparent, and unified now as real life, which means that essentially we are beginning to gradually change things. We begin to change in real life because we change digitally, and vice versa. And it's a journey in the fullest sense of the word. Yeah,
that's it. It is a journey. So the story I was going to tell, perfect setup there, David. I was at the Social Media Marketing World Conference 2013, and I sat there and I was with Sue Zimmerman and Mike Gingerich, and I don't know if you know Sue. They're both awesome. And I was there chatting with Sue. Next thing I know, Mike was tweeting what I was talking about. I was like, what? I don't even. What are you doing? I would have said it differently if I knew you were going to put it online. I was like, and then bit by bit, I realised that actually that was my moment of it's just now one thing, and it changed. And the point of it being a journey, it took me a while to get to that point. And I think it takes everybody a while, unless they are just simply, there. And it's business. It's because you're almost concerned of what will people think if I'm posting this stuff. Would they want to do business? And bit by bit, people do business with you. And it happens that you have an expertise. And I think that's one of the great things that we got. Bringing it back to collections is that people can see that you've got specialisms and you've got niche interests, and that's okay. Because it's differentiating your personality, not separating bits off into private communities and hidden corners. It's actually very much, certainly for most people, I would say, public. Find the people that relate to it.
Yeah, and that's the real disrupt. I mean, initially the digital domain very much reflected the life one. We all went into little chat rooms and little communities and little forums. And within those forums and communities and chat rooms, we all had permission to, because of the environment, behave in a particular way. Whether it was right or wrong, it didn't matter. This doesn't happen anymore. It's a public stage in the fullest sense of the word. Real life is becoming broader because we have access to digital. We can pretty much research anybody, and vice versa. We can get on digital domain. We can see people whom we perhaps will meet someday in real life. It's changing both fronts, and to my mind, for the better. It's roughing, smoothing out the rough edges, making us think consciously about the things which in the past we used to have a knee-jerk reaction or opinion about. and that's the transcendental bit that Martin frequently talks about.
So we're coming to the end of our time. I think we could go on for several hours with this conversation, but we're coming to the end of the time. So I thought everyone could have one last word about working with the new update to Google+. So Teodora, you want to start?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing is not the tool, but what's in your heart. And what do you want to tell other people? And if you know what you want to tell, if you know what you're looking for, you will not be afraid of the tools and the technologies. You will only be able to make the best use of them, knowing that you have something unique to share with others.
I'm just
how can we possibly stop that? I think we just need to stop there, right?
Got the mic. Well done, Teodora.
Martin, go ahead.
I'll summarise it. I'll put it into 4 words. Find your passion, lead your people.
So that's really good. And I think it's just be yourself, wherever you are. Just be you. And you need to work at that. You need to actually realize who you are. This is the internal part. This is the thinking you need to do for yourself. And then work to project it. Still unbeat Theodora's comment on this.
Be yourself. It works. Be yourself. Anyway, I know people have time constraints. People on the panel have time constraints. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. We already have a request for a second session, so we'll see how the panel feels about that. And thank you everyone for being here. And if you do have further questions, you can always post them in the comment stream and we'll be paying attention. So thank you everyone. Thank you David. Thank you Martin. Thank you Theodora. It was just a fabulous conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Ciao.